So I rode off. I was on my bike. That was the first time I ever really met him. But I already knew I knew who he was by sight, by his shape, you know, by just the way people were around him. You know, he just and here's the thing about Tookie. Tookie never was like the leader. He just was just one of the hardest motherfuckers. And motherfuckers was just on that level of getting hard. So who else better to emulate than the hardest motherfucker there? But Tookie, he himself was emulating Craig Munson. The thing was to try to be a giant. The thing was that when I hit you, I want to knock you out. I don't got time to be fighting with you all day. My biscuits is shined up. I got my creases in. I got the vest on. You know what I mean? I got my ace deuce. I got the motherfucking, it's hooked up. I ain't got time to be fighting with you. I got this long cross earring in. When I hit you, I'm gonna knock you out. So in order for me to do that, I gotta lift weights. So Tuki was the prototype of that for us. But he himself was, as we all overstand, right? Tuki used to have a big old picture of Sergio Olivia, a Cuban brother who won Mr. Olympia. First brother ever to do it, African Cuban. And so everybody had something to look up to, man. But you had Tuki, right? But Tuki wasn't the biggest. There was other cats bigger than Tuki, but they didn't have the whole package.
Bigger in what? Reputation or size? And
size. No one bigger than rep. Because once the rep is established, then that's what you ride on, right? And then more times out of 10, when you approach, people are approaching you based on your rep. So that'll float you for a while, but Tuki's like cutes, like all of us. The rep ain't cool. I need to fight every day. So that's how Tuki was. He just pull up and just want to fight a motherfucker. You know what I mean? So he wasn't always the biggest, but he had the whole total package, the whole charisma. Man, look, bro, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Keyway and Tuki is a Keyway, and I knew him personally, but he was star quality, man, just like Mouse. These cats, man, in any other lane in this country, if freedom existed, these dudes would be who everybody would be. These dudes would be our Billy D. Williams. They would be our James Earl Jones. These dudes, I'm talking about the total package. Intelligence, wit, charm, unbridled sexuality, physique, looks, teeth. I mean, these dudes, no tattoos. They didn't have to do none of that. They didn't have to, look, when you see these dudes, they might just do something as esoteric as this. Just throw their wing out on you. Ain't nobody seen this but you and this dude. But he just flexed on you. Now it's about Burgess Swan and going to Long Beach and catching him at the Long Beach Arena for the Parliament Funkadelic concert. We're going to break on him. Come out on him, Tookie. Break on him, Tookie. Break on him. That's what Big Jack would say. Break on him, Tookie. And Tookie would come out of shit. No tattoos, waist this small. Come out like this, man. I'm just a giant of a dude. Handsome. Big old natural. At the height of health. Taking no supplements or nothing, man. Man, Took would do this shit. All bullshit aside on the set. Took would go up to the liquor store and buy a half pint of chocolate milk. Go right around the other aisle and get a little packet of yeast. He'd take the yeast and eat the yeast and drink the chocolate milk on the way back home and say, I'm finna go out to the house and blow up like bread. And he'd start lifting because it was my job to stack the weights. Me, Harv, Lil Harv, Trey Ball. It was our job to stack the weights. So if he say he doing arms that day, we get the arm shit out. Dumbbells. You know how the whole front room, Tookie's whole front room was no furniture, all weights. The other homies had went around and taken from areas and people. So Took's whole front room was weights. You want to sit down, you sit down on a stack of 50s. Or you sit down on that crate, but in that crate it's like a gang of dimes. And mirrors. And a crate with a box with a speaker in it that was hooked to a line that went to the back. That was supposed to be an 8-track, but it only played 4 songs. A 4-track. So they played 4 songs over and over all day. Girl Call It by Chocolate Milk. Reach For It by George Duke. Happy Feelings by Frankie Beverly and Mays. And Go Away Little Boy by Marlena Shaw. Now this song here made it into the repertoire because Big Jack, Took's roommate, who was an OG Eastside Crip, swole at the top, but he had little bitty chicken legs. That's the homie. But that was his weakness. He had the proverbial despicable me body. Like the penitentiary body. That, you know, before people start working on their legs, overstanding at the legs is your foundation. And I'm getting off this, man. I'm gonna start. Look, hey, bro, look, hey, look.
First day he met Raymond Washington, and he hung out at 13 years old with Raymond Washington and Stanley Tookie Willaims, two of the well-known founders of the Crips. Let's play this clip. Let's play this clip.
First time I met Raymond Washington, listen to this. This is historical shit right here, homie. All bullshit aside. By this time, in me and Tookie's relationship, I had started carrying a gun. But Tookie's driver, a cat named T-Bone from the west side of 92nd, had a pearl white 68 Chevy on Kragers. That motherfucker was tight. No hydraulics, it just was fucking sitting on fucking 20 Kragers. Pearl white, with the bullets. Pearl white. That was Tookie's like driver. So on Sundays, we banked at Centennial Park, but I carried a gun. So it'd be him driving, Took, and me in the back with the burner, big ass Police 38. I had already had like 2 bodies by this time. But this day we go to Centennial Park and Raymond's there. So everybody's gathering around Raymond. I'm just in the cut like I'm supposed to be with the burner. Looking tough as shit. I know I'm gonna miss everything I shoot at. I ain't been to shooting range or nothing. I just got adrenaline and calm. I'm ready to aim at a motherfucker with adrenaline and calm. But that day, Raymond needs a ride back. And so Took said, hell yeah. So I jump in the back as usual. So Tookie's next to me. Raymond's in the front, T-Bone's driving. All the windows down. Sunday afternoon, coming back from Inglewood on Manchester. T-Bone got an 8-track tape of the new song that just came out by the Commodores called Zoom, and Raymond's stuck on it. He keeps clicking that motherfucker to the same song, but he's singing it at the top of his voice. Oh, Zoom, I like to fly far away from here, where my mind. And he's singing at the top of his voice, but that shit is infectious. So we all just like this, right? That shit is fucking cool. We're just like, this is the top of crypto. This is the fucking top. Right? And I'm like fucking 12. And this shit is fucking blowing my mind, but I'm like, this is fucking crippling right here. All the way back. So we heard all the way back. So when we get back, I go in the backyard and grab my bike. I got a BMX. When I come out, Took say, hey Raymond, you hungry? Raymond said, hell yeah. So Took broke out a couple dollars. He didn't ask me if I wanted shit. I had been carrying a gun all day. But I was like, fuck, I'm hungry as a motherfucker, right? I didn't want to say that, I couldn't say it. So he looked at me and said, hey Kody, go up to Vivian's and get me a fish sandwich. What you want, Raymond? Raymond said, give me an egg sandwich. So I got him an egg sandwich. I got the money. I pushed him on bike, but I was mad as a motherfucker because I was hungry and shit. So I go up there. When I get Raymond shit, they had cut it in half like a triangle. Man, I opened one piece of bread, I stole the egg. I ate it. Put the sandwich back, folded it back up and shit, packed it back, put it back, and I bailed back down there. Egg all on my face. I didn't even know. Push up, hook slide, jumped off, gave him the shit. Like 2 minutes later, Raymond said, hey, Took, hey, cuz, this motherfucker ain't got no egg in it, cuz. Took said, man, what? Looked over there. Took said, he looked right at me. I got egg and shit. He knew I did that shit, but he spared me. He looked at me. He said, let's go. Boom. They marched up to fucking Vivian's, Took and Raymond, and jumped over the counter and took everything they had, from fucking spoons to salt and pepper, fucking jalapenos, everything. Put that shit in big ass bags and walked down the street with it. I felt so bad for the Asian people, but I was so happy because they ate so well that day. But later on, Tookie told me, he said, motherfucker, I know you did it. I said, I ain't do nothing, man. That's when I first met Raymond. I mean, yeah, I'm not proud that I stole the egg out of the sandwich, but I was hungry. I was being a valiant soldier all day. I ain't break no oaths. I ain't break no laws. I stole the founder's egg.
So when you joined
Later on, I paid back in bodies and desolation.
Doing a biopic about how the Crips got started and stuff like that, which is like the first big gang in California. Then later on, offshoot was the Bloods. But I think if done right with a good budget, this could be a really, you know who would play a good Raymond Washington? And let me know if y'all think this would be a good match in the comments. Maybe if he's a little bit young. I mean, I guess he could play a younger, because I say, let me see, this actor that I'm thinking about that would play a good Raymond Washington, he's about 31, 32. I think Raymond Washington passed away when he was 25. The person I think that would play a good Raymond Washington in a biopic about the Crips, Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors, I think they can make him look younger. They can shave his face. They can give him a little fro like Raymond had. He got the physique. He already swole like a Raymond Washington. I think he could play a Raymond Washington, you know, if they did it in the next 2 or 3 years. Because right now he's about, 30, 31. Raymond Washington, I believe, died when he was about 25, 26. So he still could play a 25-year-old at 32, 33, But I think if they did a biopic about the Crips, I think he would play a good Raymond Washington. Now, somebody that would play Tuki, I don't know. Who would make a good Tuki? Who y'all think would make a good Tuki? They did a Crips biopic. Leave it in the comments and subscribe to Charles Arnett's World. Thanks for watching.
For more of these fascinating stories and true crimes, subscribe to Charles Arnett's World. Thanks for watching.
Enjoying this shit so far? Then hit that thumbs up button.
your mailing addresses. We're not talking football right now. We can talk football later on. Right now, we got special guest OG Cutes in the building. Cutes.
Yeah.
When did you and your brother start lifting weights, and what gave you guys that idea?
Well, we came up in a family where my father lifted weights from New York Barbell Company. He was a weightlifter. His brothers were weightlifters. So we grew up around it, with our uncles, their friends. They were all lifting like in the 60s. We little kids, we running around the house. They telling us to watch out. Don't come in here. We lifting weights. You're going to get hurt. And I would always go to the door, or when my dad would be buffing in the backyard with his buddies, Big Blue's father, Big Charles, and them, they be back there buffing. And then the farmer, Uncle Al, he would be back there trying to buff with them. But at that time, he wasn't strong as they were. So, it just came up, and then watching the older kids in the neighborhood working out, Ronald Raspberry, the Carltons, the McNeils, all the different people in the neighborhood. They were working out in the 60s. A lot of the Rebel Rouser dudes, they lifted weights up at the park. And you would just, wherever you were at, you would see guys, pulling the weights out, buffing in their front yard. That's the way it was in the 60s. You kids grew up looking at that, watching everybody working out, which then it passed down to us.
Now motherfuckers watch everybody eating McDonald's. Getting man boobs now. Yeah, black people were a lot more healthier back in those days, man. Especially in the 60s. I think the food was better. They weren't putting a lot of chemicals in the food. That's why you look at a lot of pictures, people were slim. You rarely saw any fat people back in those days. Everybody was slim and trim. All the clothes are made slim and trim. The cut was slim and trim. Even the older people were slim and trim. People in their 60s was slim and trim. They didn't really have too many people with guts. Like I said, because the food wasn't all, the chicken was natural, everything was organic. It wasn't this, you got to buy organic, or everything was just organic. They wouldn't put stuff. That's why milk went bad faster back then, because it was all natural. You had to buy eggs if your eggs if you didn't eat your eggs within a couple of days, them damn things went bad. Now they put so many chemicals in the chicken and in the eggs now, you can have eggs in your refrigerator for a month. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, and like I said, I think people back in those days looked out for their health. People wanted to look good back then. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, this is Kev Mac. Listen to the sound. Uh-oh. The sound, y'all. Well, I did. What's going on with the sound?
A lot of things happen, to make kids want to work out. As they enter puberty, they start going to high school. It's not that weights could make you fight any better, but what it does do, it gives you power. You could have power, but if you don't know how to fight, then, the power, you would have to try to grab someone and hold them, or wrestle them down.
Right.
Then it would have benefit in that area. But fighting and being buff is two different things. Those skills have to be acquired too. And most of the kids that I grew up with that lifted weights, they had already knew how to fight previously, before lifting the weights, and it just enhanced their athleticism, to where they were able to do things better. It just, even in sports. If you look at the early football players, like in the 1960s and really in the 70s, that's when weightlifting was introduced to pro sports more so than any. If you look at the size and the difference of the players and the athletes, you'll see that once the weights was introduced, that the players got bigger. And I'm not talking about steroids being introduced. I'm talking about just regular, dudes with ability and good genes. Once they started pumping that iron, they athleticism, it just enhanced it. So now it's a part of basically baseball, hockey, football, all the different, sports. Even basketball players lift weights, and they do unorthodox lifting, but it's still lifting. They do different styles of lifting,
Right.
But us, we lifted for the past time in jail. You're incarcerated, you're in juvenile hall. How you gonna pass your time? So a lot of us started working out incarcerated, but unfortunately for me, I was able to grow up around people working out. So
There's him.
some people get jailhouse yokes. That's what we used to call it. As soon as they get out, they fall off.
That's not him.
So if you get some jailhouse yokes and you get out, you fall off because you didn't have that routine when you were out before. So that's why a lot of guys get out that had jailhouse yokes. They didn't maintain. Tookie used to laugh at guys like that, and so did Munson, because they were able to maintain their physiques on the street, because they basically started buffing, prior to being incarcerated.
All right, I apologize, you guys, for having my mic off. I was trying not to have the mouse making too much noise while Cuse was talking. This picture right here,
That look like,
Lil Capone.
oh, who's this?
Motherfuckers start getting fat and stuff. That's what it is. That's probably what Tuki and them was laughing at. Motherfuckers get out and get fat. You know what I'm saying? They get fat once they get out. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers start eating. Because you gotta think, you want a certain diet when you're in prison. It's almost like you're in the army when you're in prison. You're not eating a lot. You want to eat certain things, but you get out now. You can have pie anytime you want. You can go get a pie at 3 o'clock in the morning. When certain times you used to have to eat at certain times, and they only had certain foods you could eat, so that your diet was on point. So you was eating almost pretty much the same thing every day, and the food probably was horrible. So you wasn't really eating that much, so you was keeping yourself slender, and you like you said, you buffing every day because you ain't got nothing else to do. But then you get out here with all these distractions. Now you can get pussy, you got drugs, you got, so you can go to the strip club, you can go get a pizza at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just like, now you like forget them weights. You know what I'm saying?
Picture right here. Look like
that's Lil Capone from 60s.
Oh, that's not
and
him.
what I wanted to say was, a lot of guys go to prison now. They're not coming home looking like this right here. So what type of person does it take to still go back to prison and be able to get
They ain't
yoked
got
up
kind of
like
weights like that no more.
Well, you have to be, first of all, you have to get inside of a trade, you know, like auto mechanics or somewhere where you could, you know, make some weights, you know, make something to lift, you know, because as we know, for whatever reason, you know, they gave to take the weights out of the institution.
Bro, it was getting too
You know,
big.
there's no more weights inside of the institutions. And I believe they even took them out of the juvenile facilities in California. So in California, weightlifting is banned.
Bro,
So,
was
and
getting
it
too
got
buff.
banned in the 90s, like
Yep.
97, right around in there. That's when they came in with the big trucks and they took all the weights away. So what we learned to do, you know, and
Motherfuckers was getting too big. They did that in Florida. The dude, I remember back in the day, but they took the weights, and he said like 97. Nah, it was longer. I think it might have been like in 92, 91, 92. Because I remember my friends, brothers, and them they would go to juvenile when we were kids. They would go to jail and stuff like that in the 80s and stuff. And then they'll get out and everybody be all yoked up. Man, where you been? I was locked up. Motherfucker be big, you know what I'm saying? And then like in 92, 93, when we was in middle school, it started going around, man, you know, they're taking the weights out of 33rd, it was 33rd Street Jail. That's the jail in Orlando, Florida. And it's like, man, you heard they're taking all the weights out of the 33rd Street Jail. Because that's where everybody would go to 33rd Street. And then once they did that, when people would go to jail, they would come back home fat. Motherfuckers come back home either fat or real skinny. You know what I'm saying? They'll come home fat, but back in the day before they used to before they got rid of the weights, I remember motherfuckers used to come back home. Motherfuckers, hey, you seen such and such? You know he out of jail. You see, he big as hell. Now he yoked up. You know, they took them weights out. You know, they was them inmates was getting too much to handle in there. When they start having riots, they'll take over the whole prison. Motherfuckers look around and be like, man, we bigger than these damn guards. Just take this whole prison over. So they had to get rid of the weights. You know, you can do all the cardio you want. They still got the basketball courts, but as far as strength, you gotta do push-ups and shit.
our trade areas, we learned to buff motor parts, blocks, you know, different things. So you got to be, you know, innovative. You have to look and see what you could work out with. Some kids would make water bags, you know, they would make sandbags. They would, you know, get axle parts. You know, when you're in those trades, you can find some good, you know, steel and buff it. You know, I used to buff the soccer goal, do some kickouts with the soccer goal. You have to be strong to work out with this